Congrats, you just got your first ever guitar. You're filled with hope, but your poor fingertips have absolutely no idea what's coming for them. You've probably already visualized yourself playing a sold-out show at Coachella, or at the very least being able to play around a campfire. But before you sit down and learn Wonderwall, we need to talk about the reality of your next 12 months. Because there are some harsh truths and things about guitar that no one tells you until it's too late that leads to 90% of guitarists quitting in their first year. But I've conveniently already made all these mistakes for you ahead of time, so hopefully you can learn guitar in a year without losing your sanity. So the first thing you obviously have to do is pick your weapon of choice, if you don't have one already. Acoustics are great for learning how to strum chords, those who want to sing and play guitar at the same time, or those who are looking for more of a chill vibe. The great thing is that you don't need an amplifier with acoustics. You literally just play and that's it. You can bring it everywhere with you. Electric guitar is for those who like experimenting and exploring a massive range of tones and genres. The difficult thing is that all your mistakes are amplified, so learning electric in the beginning can be super challenging, especially because there's so many people online who are just absolutely shredding and reminding you that a literal toddler on the internet has more soul in their pinky finger than you have in your entire body. But once you get the hang of it, you will feel super cool, and suddenly you have to bring up guitar in like every conversation you have. Classical guitar is for the people that are in it for the long game. It's very fingerstyle focused and technical, but it'll make you a really great player, just maybe not in a year. I mean, it takes a few months just to learn how to sit in the chair correctly. But that's okay because you'll eventually be able to play pretty much anything that you want if you have the motivation for it. Regardless of which guitar you choose, all roads lead to the first week of guitar. You're excited to learn and your whole YouTube algorithm is just flooded with guitar content like this video, and you're ready to go. So you start putting in the hours, and the first thing you realize is that simply holding the guitar feels weird. It's gonna take a few weeks to get used to this feeling and figuring out how to support the guitar with your forearm as well as your fretting hand. It's a very delicate balance, but your brain will just figure it out on its own in the background while you cry over your first bar chord. Speaking of bar chords, you might encounter your very first bar chord in week 1 or so, probably from trying your favorite song that just happens to have a lot of difficult chords in it. But you gotta learn it because you can't just not learn your favorite song. But if I'm gonna be real, if you can't play an open chord yet, like cleanly, you're probably not ready for a bar chord. But it's still worth attempting just to learn how they work and how your fingers need to basically be arranged into a shape that a human hand should not be able to make. Slowly, you'll build up the strength in your fingers to be able to play a bar chord, but you might not like this answer. It will take months or even over a year, depending on how much you practice, to get your chords sounding clean. And this is a fact that not many people like to accept because we all want to learn our favorite songs as quickly as possible. But the guitar learning curve is a little bit different than other instruments like piano, for example. The great thing about piano is that you can press down on any key and it will sound fine. But with guitar, you have 2 points of contact, your fretting hand and your picking hand. So you have to make sure that both ends are done correctly. There's no point in fretting the correct note with your left hand if you pluck the wrong string with your right, because you won't hear it. So for the first few months of guitar, this is something you really need to be careful about. After week 1, most of the novelty has worn off, but you know what hasn't worn off? The pain in your fingers. In fact, it's only just begun. And now you have to start building up your calluses. Your fingertips are going to start peeling, which is a good sign that they're getting stronger and your calluses are forming, but it's going to be super uncomfortable in the beginning. And if you're going through this right now, I feel your pain. It is very valid, so don't let this stop you from learning guitar. This is where a lot of people give up, so just remember that every guitar legend that you've ever looked up to had to go through this phase as well. During this time, you're going to encounter a very interesting phenomenon where your picks will just start randomly disappearing. You'll be playing for just a few minutes and place down your pick on the table and look back and it will be gone. I believe in science, but this is the one thing that defies the laws of physics. Because literally, where are my picks going? Can someone tell me in the comments? Like, I checked the couch, I checked the drawers, I checked the floors, but it's gone. And if you're playing acoustic guitar, this is even worse, because your pick will decide to take a precision dive directly into the sound hole. And then you'll spend the next 15 minutes holding your guitar upside down and shaking it violently. I see this as a rite of passage for guitar, and it'll be such a joyous moment when you finally get the pick out. And then the same thing will happen 6 minutes later. By week 3, you finally come to an important realization. Your guitar doesn't stay in tune all the time. And that's totally normal. Probably before each playing session, you should tune your guitar, or at least be cognizant of the fact that it might be out of tune. Just because you tuned it once on Monday doesn't mean it'll be the same on Friday. It can be affected by a whole plethora of things like temperature, humidity, if you did a lot of bends on it the other day, if it was just restrung, or even if you just look at it funny. Believe it or not, it will be out of tune. So get into the habit of retuning your guitar like all the time. Some professionals even do it mid-song. But don't become super obsessed with it where you're like constantly trying to hit the exact frequency of the tuner, because you can never really be perfect. And that's okay, as long as it's EAD GBE, you're good to go. You'll spot the small differences as you progress as a guitarist. At the end of month 1, you're trying to improve the speed of your chord transitions. Because what's the point of learning chords if you can't switch between them quickly? If you're struggling, try planting down the notes in the order that you strum the strings in order to give yourself a few extra milliseconds to place your fingers in the correct chord shape. Also, if you really want to expedite your learning process, try transitioning between chords like very, very slowly. Just back and forth between the shapes. And then try it with a metronome. But the key is to always do it slowly at first and then work up to higher speeds. You really don't want to be setting up your foundation, something as important as chord transitions, to be sloppy, especially this early into your guitar learning journey. Muscle memory doesn't distinguish between a clean chord and a buzzy one. It just remembers what you repeat with your fingers. So make sure you're repeating it correctly. Alright, it's month 2 and you're trying to uncover the great fret buzz mystery. You know where to put your fingers and when, but when you do, it sounds like you got a beehive living inside of your guitar. Everyone's going to tell you that you need to press down harder on the strings, which is true to an extent, but you also really need to pay attention to where you press. The best place to put your finger is not in the middle of the fret, but just behind the next fret. By making this small change, your notes will sound clearer without you having to put in extra effort. And while you're fixing your left hand, you might realize that this whole time, you've been holding your pick wrong. You probably started out holding it with 3 fingers like this, but if you actually want speed, you're going to have to tuck it between the side of your index finger and your thumb. Changing your grip is going to feel like you're playing guitar with your non-dominant hand for a little bit, but you're going to have to trust me on this one. Just give it a few months. Alright, cool. So it's month 3 and you're now tackling your first ever guitar solo. Up until this point, you've probably been a rhythm guitarist, more focused on strumming chords, which is great because that's teaching you finger dexterity and rhythm, but now you want to venture into the world of lead guitar. The thing is, until now, your fingers have been moving together as a collective unit for each chord shape, but now you have to learn finger independence with playing solos. This is where your pinky finger really comes into play, because so many scales and solos heavily utilize the pinky. But you have to build up its strength over time. It's going to be weak, it's going to be shaky, and it's going to try to hide behind your ring finger if you don't practice. So this is a pivotal moment when you really need to lock in and work hard. At this point, you've probably learned the A minor pentatonic scale, and I like to call this the holy grail scale for guitar, because it unlocks your ability to start learning how to improvise. This is the first time you're actually deciding what you want to play instead of just following a chord chart. And for a few fleeting seconds, you actually sound kind of good. The only downside is that you have now officially entered pentatonic hell, which you will be in for the next few years and might not ever leave, but that's a discussion for another day. So you've entered month 6. This is the stage where you're not necessarily bad anymore, but you're not great either. It's a weird in-between era where your rapid progress you were making in the first few months slows down to a crawl. You already know all these basic open chords and you can play the first 4 bars to like some famous rock songs, but finishing an entire song is a skill in itself. I know it's boring to learn each verse and the bridge and the outro, but actually learning an entire song on an instrument is great for memory and recognizing patterns, and also building up your guitar stamina. These are definitely the filler episodes of your guitar journey, but still important in itself because you need to continue the momentum. You can't fall off now because you've already gotten this far. Alright, so now it's month 8 and you're doing good, but you've just hit a very dangerous stage where you start wanting some new gear. Because you tell yourself that the only difference between your playing and the professionals is that they have the exclusive Gibson Les Paul Standard in British Racing Green, and you still have your old janky 2014 Squire. But I would for now stray away from making any big purchases. If you want a little upgrade, that's fine, but don't go too crazy. You can always make a bad guitar sound good with just skill, and a good guitar sound bad because you're only 8 months into playing guitar. And you know what? Playing on those high action strings builds character. And calluses. That brings you to month 10, where you decide to finally change your strings. Just kidding, you don't change your strings until year 3. But honestly though, please change them, just trust me, it's really not that bad. Especially if you have an older guitar that your cousin gave you like a decade ago. Just for your information, mold can grow on strings, so just keep that in mind. This is also the era where you fall into the noodling trap, where you sit down to practice for an hour, but instead of actually learning something new, you spend that entire time playing the pentatonic scale and staring blankly at the wall. You feel like you practiced, but really you just spent an hour making noise. It's okay though, it happens to the best of us. So finally, that brings us to day 365. You've officially survived 1 whole year of guitar. Looking back, you realize year 1 was truly an emotional roller coaster for you and your family who had to suffer through you playing the intro to Seven Nation Army for 3 hours every Sunday. Remember when the F chord was impossible to play? Well, now you can play it with 4 out of the 6 strings ringing out. And that's not bad. Your first year with guitar is not actually about becoming a virtuoso, but just learning how to be consistent and resilient with learning a new instrument for an entire year. And I'm confident in saying that if you've made it this far and stuck with guitar through all the physical pain and mental gymnastics of trying to line up your fingers into a B minor chord, you're part of the small 10% of people who actually stuck with the instrument. It's not even worth worrying about if you're good or bad at this point. It's more of an accomplishment to actually have continued something for this long. So keep your momentum going, go treat yourself to a new pack of strings or a new setup, and embark on year 2 of guitar, cause that's when things actually get interesting. And maybe you'll land the F chord for real this time. Thanks for watching.